Thank you, Warden. As we say here in Harambe, Twende, let's go. Jambo, everyone. My name is Rebecca. I'll be your safari guide today. A few reminders as we head out. Please be sure to remain seated, keeping all hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck at all times. We're going to be headed into the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. And this reserve was opened back in 1971 as a way to protect our local animals. Above you, you'll see a spotting guide with some of the animals that we will see today. Now, if you have your cameras, feel free to take pictures. Just be sure to hold on to those cameras, as we can't stop for anything that falls from the truck. Now, as we're headed into the reserve, we're headed into the Little Ituri Forest, home to some of the shyer, more reclusive animals. The forest animals, they also rely heavily on their coloration as their main defense, so sometimes they can blend in pretty well with their surroundings. Just keep your eyes out though, and we're sure to spot them. Over on the right hand side, you'll find an okapi. Now at first glance, the okapi may look like it's related to a zebra. However, its closest relative is actually the giraffe. The giraffe and the okapi both have long prehensile tongues. Now the okapi, it is pretty shy, and it does blend in very well with its surroundings. Because of that, it wasn't discovered by Westerners until after 1901. The locals, they'd seen it before, just not too often, as it is pretty shy. Over on the left-hand side, keep an eye out for the black rhinoceros. Black rhinos can get up to 3,000 pounds, and even though there's all these trees and rocks out here, they can charge at about 35 miles per hour. Now over on the right-hand side, I do see a couple of antelope. Now the lighter colored ones, those are the greater kudu. Now it looks like those ones are females, as they don't have the long, spiral, 6-foot horns that the males are known for. The darker colored ones, those are the bongos. Now bongos are considered the ghosts of the forest, as they're very rarely seen unless you're in a reserve like ours. Now I do see that black rhino up there taking a nap. Kind of looks like a giant rock. Now there are currently less than 5,000 black rhinoceros left in the world today, and that's due to poaching. They've been poached to near extinction for their horns, which are made out of keratin, just like our hair and our fingernails. Over on the left-hand side, you'll also see some saddle-billed storks. The tallest storks in Africa are getting about 5 feet tall, with a wingspan up to 9 feet wide. Now they are primarily solitary, so you usually only see 1 or 2 of them in an area. Now from here, we're going to head over to the Safi River, and the Safi River is our best chance to see the Nile hippopotamus. Now one very important thing to keep in mind when looking for a hippopotamus is to be sure to look not just up on land, but also down in the water, as hippos will usually spend the majority of their day in the water to escape that hot sun, oftentimes remaining fully submerged for up to 8 minutes at a time. Now the hippos, they'll come out a little bit more frequently at dusk and throughout the evening to do a lot of grazing along the banks. Hippos are herbivores, and they'll eat an average of about 80 to 90 pounds of plants and vegetation each day. Now that's a relatively small amount for their large size, as they can get up to about 5,500 pounds. Now the larger, lighter colored birds that you see, those are pink-backed pelicans, one of 8 pelican species. During their mating season, the plumage on their back will turn to a nice light pink shade. At their breeding sites, you'll find them in pairs, with between 50 and 200 pairs at a single site. Both mom and dad, they'll take turns incubating the eggs, staying on the nest for about 30 days until those eggs hatch. In just a moment, we're going to be headed out onto the savannas. And the savannas cover hundreds of miles across Africa. Now, those savannas are also home to a very distinct wet and dry season. Now, a lot of the animals, they'll actually migrate along with those wet seasons, as that's where they're best able to find their food. Now, the trees and the plants, they can't migrate, so they have to have a lot of special adaptations that enable them to deal with those drier conditions. Now, looks like we do have a little bit of traffic up ahead of us, so we're going to hang out here for just a moment. Now, just around this corner here, there's a very large baobab tree. Now, the baobab tree is great for that dry season, as you'll see that it has an extra wide trunk that it uses to store large amounts of water. Now, we'll get a better view in just a moment as we kind of loop around this little turn here. You see that large trunk that it uses to store large amounts of water. It can also remain leafless for about 9 months out of the year, just to conserve water. Now, as we head out through the savannas, take note of the landscaping. A lot of it is actually done by the animals. Elephants, they'll bulldoze the trees. The giraffes, they'll help with pruning. And the zebras and the antelope, they're kind of like the lawnmowers. Hoping to keep those grasses nice and short. It looks like there are quite a few animals right as we head out onto the savannas here. I see some Hartman's Mountain zebras, as well as some wildebeest. Now, oftentimes, you will find the zebras and the wildebeest together out in those grasslands. And while you think that they might compete for food, they actually don't. The zebras, they're able to digest a lot harder and rougher items than the wildebeest can, leading those zebras to eat different species of grasses or just different parts of those grasses. Now, during the migration of the wildebeest, they will form a very large group of about 1.5 million animals, and they'll migrate between 500 and 1,000 miles across Africa. Now, sometimes other animals will join in for bits of that migration, but nobody will go quite the distance that the wildebeest will. The Hartman's Mountain zebra, they've been known to migrate with the wildebeest, traveling about 300 miles or so during their own migration. Now, on the left-hand side, keep an eye out for the African wild dogs. Now, these wild dogs may look a bit like your domesticated dog, however, they are different. They actually only have 4 toes, and due to their unique coat coloration, they're oftentimes called the painted dog. Now, they're also considered one of the best hunters out in Africa, and this is due to their ability to chase down their prey until that prey gives up from exhaustion. Now, coming up on both sides of the truck here, we have some large Ankole cattle. Now, the Ankole cattle were first domesticated by the Watusi tribe, so sometimes you'll hear them called Watusi cattle. Now, they have those extra wide horns that can get up to about 6 feet wide, or about 3 to 4 feet long each. Now, you'll notice both male and female Ankole cattle have those large horns, though the males are a lot larger than the females. A little bit further back, you'll see the sable antelope. Now, if you look at the horns on the sable antelope, you'll notice that they're curved back in a way to really help deter an animal like a lion from jumping up on their back. They've also got one of the tall Maasai giraffe. Now, the Maasai giraffe can get about 18 to 20 feet tall. They have excellent eyesight, so they're able to keep a really good lookout over the savannas, even spotting animals that may be coming up in those tall grasses. Now, very rarely will you see a giraffe sitting down or even laying down. They almost always like to remain standing, ready to get away from any predators or any danger in the area. Now the giraffe, they'll even sleep standing up, and they don't sleep very much during the day, usually just about a half an hour or so each day. Now if you happen to see those giraffe grab a bite to eat, you might notice their long prehensile tongues. Now what prehensile means is they can use their tongues, kind of like we use our fingers, to grab onto different items like those leaves and branches. Now their tongues are also kind of a darker color, like a dark gray. And that's to help them prevent getting a sunburn on their tongue as they're eating way high up in those trees. Now if the giraffe wanted to, they could sprint away at about 30 to 35 miles per hour for very, very short distances. Usually if you see a giraffe running, they're cruising along at about 10 miles per hour or so, or kind of just leisurely wandering through. Now it looks like we do have some more wildebeest just outside the truck on the right hand side. And a little bit further up the hill, you'll see a smaller antelope, the springbok. Now the springbok are considered in the top 10 fastest land animals, as they're able to speed across the savannas at about 50 to 60 miles per hour. They can also spring up into the air about 6 feet. And if they happen to spring while they're running, it can leap about 13 feet across. Now the springbok are the national symbol of South Africa, so a lot of times you'll see them used as the sports team's mascots and even in their logos. As we head through this next area, keep an eye out on the right hand side for the African elephants. And sometimes we spot monkeys over on the left hand side, so we'll have to see if they're there today. And those monkeys, those are mandrills, and mandrills are the largest species of monkey, with the males getting up to about 100 pounds, females only about 30 pounds or so, and the little ones quite a bit smaller. Now oftentimes when we see the elephants, they are doing something with their trunks, like eating or drinking, picking up logs, or even reaching tall branches. Sometimes we'll even see the elephants picking up clumps of dirt and tossing that up onto their backs. Now they don't do that just to play. Elephants actually have very sensitive skin, so that dirt will act as kind of a natural sunscreen to help protect them. The elephants do have a couple other ways that they can cool down during the hotter days. They can flap their ears. By flapping their ears, they help to circulate air over the blood vessels on the back of their ears, which in turn helps to lower their body temperature and keep them a bit cooler. They can also go down into the water and splash around a bit. Elephants are excellent swimmers, and they do enjoy the water. Now as we head through the red clay pits here, I do see signs of more elephant activity. Looks like there's some footprints crossing the road, as well as those tusk marks there in the red clay. Now those tusk marks, they'll get left behind as the elephants will actually eat that red clay to gain some different beneficial minerals and nutrients, sometimes not found in their food. Elephants are herbivores, and they'll eat an average of about 300 to 400 pounds of plants and vegetation each day. Now they're not going to stop at just the leaves and the grasses. They'll sometimes even eat small trees. Now oftentimes when we see a group of elephants, there's a matriarch or an older female who's in charge, and then any of the other mothers and their offspring. Now when male elephants become teenagers, they'll oftentimes leave the group, either going off on their own or forming or joining a bachelor group. Both male and female African elephants have those long ivory tusks, and unfortunately this does make them both a target for those poachers. Elephants have also been losing a lot of their habitat just due to human activity. And that's from us expanding our areas to farming and even mining. Alright, now we're going to be headed past one of the elephants' watering holes. They'll come down here to grab a drink or even go for a swim. Elephants have a very unique ability to locate water. Even if it's not just up on the surface like this, they can actually sense that it's below and begin to dig for it, helping out not only other elephants, but other animals on the savannah during those dry seasons. Over on the left-hand side, you'll find the greater flamingos. And greater flamingos are the largest species of flamingo, and they get that pink coloration from the different foods that they eat. Now, they are filter feeders, so you'll see them with their heads below water, kind of stomping their feet. That helps to loosen their food. And then their beaks are formed in a way that will filter out all of the sand and water, leaving just their food behind. Now, one of their favorite foods is the brine shrimp, and that definitely helps to get them that pink coloration. Now, if you happen to see a couple of those shorter flamingos out there, they're a little bit more gray and white than they are pink. Those are juveniles, just a few months old. Now, they won't get their full pink coloration until they're about 2 years old. Oh, looks like we found some white rhinos. Now, white rhinos are a lot larger than the black rhinos that we saw earlier, getting up to about 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. They're also a lot more social. They actually prefer to be in pairs or in small groups. Now, a group of rhinos is called a crash. Oh, looks like there is a younger rhino back there. Now, looking at those rhinos, you're probably thinking they're not white. And they're not, but they're named for the Afrikaans word wijd, which means wide. They have a much wider top lip than many other rhinoceros species. And this is due to what they like to eat. A lot of grasses and softer items closer to the ground. Over on the left-hand side, also keep an eye out for the cheetahs. They're oftentimes spotted in this area. And cheetahs are the fastest land animals, capable of reaching speeds of up to 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. Now, they can't maintain those speeds for very far distances. They do need periods to rest. Their spots and their coloration help them to blend in very well with their surroundings. Now, cheetahs are also one of the few large cats that will do the majority of their hunting during the day. And this is actually due to their eyesight. They can see much, much better in the daylight than they can at night. Now, up on the right-hand side in those trees, I see some little water buck, a type of antelope that'll spend most of its time living near a single body of water. And they'll actually drink more water than any other antelope species. Sometimes if they get scared, they'll actually run into that body of water to help them disguise themselves. Just outside the truck on the left-hand side, you'll find another antelope. This is a bontebok. Now, the bontebok is a type of antelope unfortunately poached to near extinction for that beautiful coat. Farmers noticed their numbers declining, and they did begin to protect them. So they are doing much, much better on protected reserves like ours. Those large rocks are the Kopi rocks, and they're great as they allow the animals to get nice and high and get a good look out over the savannah. It's also where we tend to find the other large cat, the African lions. Now, oftentimes when we see the lions, they are taking a nap. They'll usually sleep for about 16 to 20 hours each day. Now, the lions will do a lot of their hunting in the evening and throughout the night. That's due to their eyesight. During the day, the lions, they can see about as well as we can. But at night, they can see about 5 to 6 times better than they can during the day. Lions are one of the few large cats that will do the majority of their hunting as a group. Those female lionesses, they'll go out, they'll take down food for the entire pride. Meanwhile, the male lion, he's in charge of guarding their territory and protecting and defending the pride. Here on the left-hand side, you'll find the warthogs. Now, warthogs are one of the largest burrowing animals. They'll use their razor-sharp tusks either for digging their own burrows or expanding the burrows of other animals. Now when they go to sleep at night, they're going to back into those burrows, so those tusks are always facing forward, always ready to defend themselves. Now up on the right hand side, I see some large ostrich eggs, so keep an eye out for the ostrich. Now even though the ostrich isn't right there with those eggs, and they're not in a big fancy nest like a lot of birds like to build, they are still protected. They have a super strong shell, capable of withstanding even the weight of a human. Now throughout the day, the dominant male and female ostrich, they will be by to check on those eggs, staying a lot closer once they start to hatch. Now those eggs are pretty large. One ostrich egg is the equivalent to about 2 dozen chicken eggs. As we head back towards the village, we are going to be passing by one of the warden's posts. And our wardens, they do all kinds of things to help out the animals. From stopping those poachers to helping the locals learn to live better with the animals in their area. One of their most recent projects has been getting these little Nigerian dwarf goats. Now the adults, they're full grown. And these goats have been domesticated worldwide for their dairy usage, producing up to 2 pints of milk a day, and giving the villagers something to drink as well as something to sell. A lot of times the farmers will put a couple goats into their pastures, as those goats are able to eat a lot of the thorny bushes and sticks and vegetation that many other animals just don't want to eat. Now I want to thank everyone for joining me out on safari today. We got to see a lot of really cool animals. Hopefully we saw some of your favorite animals, or maybe we saw some that you've never seen before. Either way, one fun thing that you can do to help out those animals is just to learn more about them. Now while you're learning more about them, you might even find some ways to help them out that you didn't even realize. Did you know that by recycling your cell phones and electronics, you can actually help out the elephants as they live in an area where they're losing a lot of their habitat due to mining for a metallic ore called coltan? The more we recycle those items, the less mining that they have to do, and the more habitat that the elephants, the mandrills, okapi, and so many other animals get to keep. Now while you're here in Harambe today, I definitely recommend you check out Gorilla Falls. There you'll be able to see many more of our amazing African animals, including the gorillas and the meerkats. And they have an aviary with a turaco and many other colorful birds. You might be able to get an up-close look at the okapi that we saw when we first entered the reserve, or even an underwater view of those hippos. Now it is a walking trail, so you can actually stop and watch those animals for as long as you'd like. Now here on Harambe, we don't like to say goodbye, but instead, Kwaherini, which means go well. So Kwaherini, everyone. Now if we have any wilderness explorers on board today, you have been riding Simba 1. For everyone on the right hand side, please watch your hands, arms, feet, and legs as those doors slide open.